Own CEO Success Circle. And this morning, we're going to be looking at the GDPR. And you might say, what does that mean? General Data Protection Regulation. This is Lowell Ann, and in my coaching and consulting work, I help solopreneurs stay focused and motivated as we take their business to the next level with some really simple structures and pretty easy technology. And we'll be right back right after this. Greetings wherever you are, and welcome to the Being Your Own CEO. This is a weekly success circle intended as a support for solopreneurs. We get together because we really enjoy each other's company, but we also love exchanging ideas and information, and we seem to be doing an awful lot of experimentation these days as well. We all give and receive support. You can discover what we stand for by reviewing the operating principles on my webpage, on this page. I want to welcome our viewers and invite them to check in by telling us where they are and what they do, and they can do that in the comments section just to the right of the video on this page. And so now it's time for us to introduce our panel members this morning. So we have a small group this morning. However, let us begin with, Fred, I would like you to begin this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Fred Jones, located on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. Currently, I'm in Souk, which is a small town up the coast of Vancouver Island, not far from Victoria. And I'm the creator of Our Future Leaders, which is an online group coaching program for young people. People often ask me, between 8 and 16 years old. Helps them with their communication and leadership skills and really boosts their self-confidence, which is going to assist them as they enter this rapidly changing world. I mean, GDPR is something that's rapidly changing. So that's why I come here, to find out what's going on in the technology as well.
It's and you're so right, Fred. I mean, things are so rapidly changing. It takes quite a bit of work to stay on top of it all. So nice that you continue to join us. So welcome here. So Alana, tell us about what's up with you these days.
Greetings, everyone. Alana here, coming to you from the Emerald Isle of Ireland, where it is just after 5 o'clock here in the afternoon. And I run a website called EmptyNesterBlog.com, where I help empty nesters create their own online income. And I'm also a virtual assistant, so I do both of those part-time. Keeps me busy. GDPR is huge over here in the EU, so there's been a lot of chatter about that here on this side of the pond. So yeah, it's not a sexy conversation, but it'll be an interesting one.
Right on. So I have to tell you, I attended a poetry workshop, I guess weekend before last, where the person who was doing the workshop had been to Ireland, where John O'Donoghue, the poet John O'Donoghue, in his area, which is in the, I guess, mid to south west of Ireland. Oh wow! The photos were just unbelievable.
A lot of people, the pictures don't really do it justice.
Yeah.
It's like, I know even when I first started coming here and I took tons of pictures, the pictures never reflected what my eyeballs actually saw. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful country, and yeah, it's well worth a visit.
Yeah. Well, and the poetry, this John O'Donoghue has written a book called the four what? You're talking about the fire, water, air, and what's the fourth one? Earth. Yeah. Oh, the four elements. That was the name of his book of poems, and he has a whole section where he talks about in his poetry each one of those, and the presenter gave visuals that would from Ireland that would fit in with all of these. It was just really, really engaging.
It sounds lovely.
It was just wonderful, yeah. So I thought of you. I thought, oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm still here, almost 20 plus years now. It's 21 years now, so yeah, I'm not looking to leave anytime soon, so.
Oh, that's good. Right on. Well, I'm glad you made it here, and I know that our topic this morning is of particular interest to you. But from my little bit of research that I've done, it needs to be of particular interest to all of us. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, Bill, there you are, still in Belize. And when Bill came on this morning, I said, "Oh, I didn't expect to see you here this morning." So I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, I have a couple of hours to join today. I'm coming. My name is Bill Graham. I'm coming to you from Belize for 2 more days. And Alana, I would warn you to never say never. We never had any intentions of leaving Belize, but duty calls rather than discontent with the country. So we are moving. But I'm here where for 2 days I literally do nothing and have no purpose other than to be here today and follow the comments and welcome people into the stream. So yeah, if you're out there, let us know you're here, and we'd love to hear from you.
Right on. Thank you for that support, Bill. And I might want to say, I think we may have shared over the while that we're doing this Zoom, and we're live streaming it to YouTube, and we're using OBS. And Bill actually worked with me last week, and we set up these hotkeys. So we've got all the functions happening by just me hitting a control and a hotkey. It is just the cat's ass. So I'm loving it. So this morning we are going to talk about GDPR. General Data Protection Regulation, and what the heck is that all about? So I went online, and because I didn't know any more than anybody else does, but I did discover that it was adopted by the EU on the 27th of April. It takes effect on the 25th of May this year. So it's all about data protection. So I'm quoting some various places here. The digital rights of EU citizens. One set of rules for all of the EU states, and the rules include guidelines for collection and processing of personal information. and some things that will happen to people if there's been a data breach. So it's going to be important to pay attention to. And some of the things that they'll be looking at is people's personal health information, any personally identifiable information at all, trade secrets, intellectual properties, all kinds of things. So it's going to mean that people who have a website and are emailing and or sending things out to people, I need to pay attention. So before we get into all of that, I want to say, and I want to let everyone know that Canada has a similar set of rules. And back in, I think it was 2014, one of the former members of this group gave us a presentation on the Canadian rules, which took effect. And so after the show, I will post a link to that presentation that Larry Earnhardt did about our Canadian rules. We have similar rules, as does the U.S. And I believe the U.S. one is called something like can spam. So in a sort of a way, this is kind of not shouldn't be new to most of us. But and I seem to remember way back when having a conversation with Vivek at the time, and him we were saying things about, things we needed to do because of privacy rules, and I remember him saying we don't have any. So here is the EU starting to catch up. So it's a set of principles about people's privacy, but also a set of things that we need to do. So, Bill, were you waving that you wanted to?
Well, I just wanted to bring your attention. I can see by your thumbnail that you can't tell that Jay has joined us. So good morning, Jay. And you may want to give him an opportunity to introduce himself.
Good morning, Jay. I wasn't expecting you, so I wasn't looking.
I'm going to decline everything so that when I arrive, it's a surprise.
I just didn't want the, is it Walford gangs coming after us?
Yeah.
Langford.
No, what's the West Shore?
Oh, that.
Yeah, the West Shore. Yeah. 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 Hi, my name is Jay. My company is Magi Studios, and we help people get started in the world of online marketing through coach, consulting, and training. Hailing from beautiful Langford, British Columbia. Happy to be here.
And we're having yesterday we had the beginning of our real spring/summer, and so my walk up through the park this morning was absolutely glorious. And because it was so warm and beautiful yesterday, the chestnut trees are out in glorious profusion on Cook Street. I just have to say that to make you feel like you need to come downtown.
Maybe one day, yeah. This Millstream construction that's going on is just...
Oh, I know. It's insane out there. I know.
I have no desire to go through that. So,
Lolan, I just wanted to mention that Miss Eileen Smith has joined us. So she's probably taking a break from her break to be here. So we thank her.
Greetings, Eileen. Nice to have you here. Haven't seen you for a while, although I saw something about you doing something on Twitter. That came up on my phone this morning. So I thought, oh, Eileen's doing something new. So we
And what else is new?
Yeah, right. What else is new? I mean, there are so many new things happening, and that's what we were kibitzing about a little bit before we came live. I mean, the number of things that are happening and changing in the online world, it really takes a lot of attention to stay on top of it. So, yeah. So, Alana, tell us what are you hearing? And is Ireland part of the EU? It still is. Will it separate away
Yes.
with Brexit?
Brexit is separating from the EU. So the UK is separating from the EU.
But not
And
Ireland?
no. Well, Ireland is part of the EU. Now, the North is a different story. So that's actually a huge issue for them right now because it's the North. So
Yeah.
the North want to stay with the UK, and the UK don't know what to do it, and that we don't have a border up there anymore. The border went away years ago. Senator Mitchell was here, and he negotiated the Good Friday Agreement, and so the border went away. And now there's a question about putting the border back, and no one wants to see that. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, the UK is separating, but the UK were never really, they were, but they only had one foot in. Like, they never changed their currency. So now they want to leave completely. So that's going to affect Scotland. It's going to affect Wales because they're both part of the UK. But that's their thing. But for Ireland and all the other countries, I think there's like 14 or 16 EU states here. So the GDPR there's been a lot of chatter about it here and how you handle information. And so essentially, from my perspective, it's anyone who resides in the EU. You have to be careful about how you handle that information and follow the rules and regulations of the GDPR. And anyone that's outside of the EU that markets to anyone in the EU has to manage that in accordance with the GDPR. So I know it sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo, and it probably is, but I'm actually glad about it. I'm glad it's being brought to the forefront, especially after everything that happened with Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So
that kind of means, as I recall, when all of this got introduced in Canada, it meant that first of all, we need to make sure that our privacy policy on our website recognizes and speaks to all of that, and that the way especially solicitation. Certainly in the Canadian regs, when I went and rewatched the presentation that Larry did about Canadian policy, and they seem to make kind of a bit of a distinction between just a straight email or whether it was a solicitation, trying a salesy sort of kind of thing. So I don't know whether the GDPR will make that distinction, but there seemed to be a bit of a distinction that way. So I mean that is one of the reasons why a lot of us are using things like MailChimp and MadMimi and all of those, because it's easy to build in the safeguards and the things that are necessary there. So,
and the companies that you outsource your email lists to, like MailChimp and MadMimi,
mm-hmm.
they have their own. They have to basically come up to speed on the whole GDPR thing, and they have. I've been on both of those sites because I use MailChimp.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them have already incorporated GDPR into their sites. And I mean, like you said, with our websites, I thought that privacy notifications already would have addressed that by saying, because we, as website owners, it's almost a given that we don't sell our lists, and we don't, we don't do anything like that with our lists. But it is written up in our privacy agreements. But I think I was never really all that concerned about it until I started getting mail from companies I had no affiliation with, and then I realized my name was getting sold around the place. But I think it's probably going to be a case where you have to check your privacy agreement and your terms and conditions to make sure you have something in there to cover it. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to just throw out GDPR, like we're in compliance.
And I would suspect that in addition to that, I mean, that's fine for what you're doing, but what about all of these other things that you're using? I mean, when we join something, we scroll through the terms and conditions and hit agree because that's part of what we need to do to get something. If people might want to start looking at those terms and conditions that other people that you're possibly sharing your lists with are doing.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to that whole Facebook thing where if you used your link to Facebook that some other in order to access another platform, that they suddenly have all your stuff and so forth. So yeah, it's really important for us to yes, I think we've all learned we need to read the terms and conditions of everything we do these days. Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how much of their information is actually out there, especially when you think about what you just said. When you use your mail address or your Facebook account to log into multiple different applications, and all that stuff is getting pulled. So I think I know I took it for granted, and now I'm second guessing it. Like Bill was saying, I think I want to start reading that stuff. I want to know what's happening with my information.
Well, but good luck understanding it. I mean,
they're all legal agreements. So you have to be used to reading legal agreements.
And the no notwithstanding, never. You get 5 or 6 negatives in there. You got to start crossing out words and see whether they're actually saying they're doing it or they're not doing it. I mean, it's pretty crazy.
And not only that, but most of them are pages and pages long. So I really think it behooves some of these platform people and all these services that they simplify their terms and conditions. Need to be simplified. So yeah.
Unfortunately, with simplification comes ambiguity. So then that's obviously what they're trying to avoid. But
yeah.
And I wonder, I don't know, this is just a question to everybody. I mean, it's fine to have all of these regulations come out, but who's going to enforce them in the first place? Who's actually going to enforce these regulations and make sure that everybody's following the rules equally? Or is it going to be a case that, like I watched His Royalness Mark Zuckerberg at the Senate things a couple of weeks ago. One senator asked him a question about the sharing of information, and he's very knowledgeable in the fact that they do not share their information. If somebody buys an ad from them, then they use that information to extrapolate who to show that ad to.
Yep.
But then when the next senator spoke, they were talking about Alliance Global or whatever it was in the UK that had all of this data breached. So how did those people get it if the list wasn't sold to them, or they didn't hack Facebook? Or, I mean, how did they get the list? And don't those two answers actually contradict each other? So on top of all of that, I mean, it's more than just having a policy in place. I think we have to be able to trust the people that are running Facebook and Google and all of these other platforms that we're going to be on. Like, how do we trust them? Or how do we know that they're following the regulations and protecting us?
Yeah, but there's a difference between, I mean, some of these algorithms, what they're doing is they're collecting what our preferences are so that they know more about us so that they can provide what we want.
Sure.
That doesn't mean that our private information, our name and our health records and all of that doesn't mean all of that stuff is being shared.
No, but in the case of that Facebook hack, it certainly was. I don't know about healthcare and bank accounts, but certainly our preferences and
Yeah.
that type of thing were shared with people to target, allegedly to target us with political stuff to change our minds.
Yeah.
So it's.
But Google does that. I mean, I know that I was looking for something. I was looking for a green screen on Amazon recently, and I went just shortly after that. I went to somebody's site, and there were adverts down the side of that site. And what do you know? What was at the very top?
Green screens. Yep.
Yeah.
Happens every time.
Yeah, because it's part of it's the algorithm kind of thing. So yeah.
Actually, Jay did a video about that must be a month or two back, I think, wasn't it, Jay, about target marketing or something? What's it called again? It's not target marketing, it's something else. It's something marketing. It's basically like secondary marketing.
Referral marketing?
Yeah, that must be it. Was that the one? It's basically where that's exactly what it is. You look up something, it's retargeting, that's what it is, retargeting.
Retargeting. Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Lowland is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So retargeting is where you go to a website, you don't do the call to action, and then you see ads in your social media and other websites of that website you were just at. So.
Yeah. Right on. Yes, I remember that. So, but getting back to this whole privacy thing, it means that you know, I mean, I think some of these concepts are common to all three agreements. You can't send somebody an email asking them if they would like to receive your emails. They have to intentionally opt in.
Yeah.
And so but the thing that sort of has given me a little bit of a growly, I used MailChimp at one time, and I moved my whole list from MailChimp over to MadMimi. And now I'm wondering if there's any way that I can prove that the people that are on my list actually opted in, because they all did. But what I don't know is whether all that information transferred over from one platform to another. So that's one of the things, that if you get accused of breaching, you have to be able to prove that the person who got your transmission opted in for it. So that's one thing. Another thing that I noticed in the notes and things that I read was people under the GDPR at least can ask to be told and shown what information you have on them, and if they ask for it, you must give it. So that means do you need to keep all your email? What does that do to your inbox, for example, Jay?
Yeah, so a lot of the automation email software provides that automatically. So at the bottom, usually it's a little bit different if you switch email providers, but there is in some of them you have a drop down to personalize stuff, to personalize things, and you create templates, and one of them is source, and it says you signed up to this on this page, kind of thing, right? And it's just a reminder as to so that's available. But I think in a situation where you switch email providers, and if someone complained or something, you would be able to go to your previous email supplier and say, I need to get that source, even if you don't have an account with them, because they will have records of that. Well, they need to be spam compliant.
Yeah. Okay. So that's comforting to know, because yes, if you if you Bill, you said who's going to police all this? I went back to my privacy statement that I put on my website based on all the information I got at the time when Larry gave us the presentation. And at the very bottom, it says, if you don't understand all of this, or if you want to complain about this or whatever, the privacy commissioner, I have had to provide the title, the email address, the website, and the phone number, so that if a person wants to report something, they're given the information as to how to do it. So those are some things that I picked up when all of this happened, when all this came about in Canada.
But at that point, isn't it too late? You've already been breached.
Well, it's more if a person comes to your website and does something and wants to report something, they
Sure.
can go to the privacy commissioner.
And I'm not sure that this whole thing has a lot to do with individuals like us that have websites. I mean, yes, I understand it applies to us, but I think this has more to do with the global data collectors, the Facebooks, the LinkedIns, all of these platforms. And, again, I mean, I think we have to do our own due diligence. My wife loves these things on Facebook, what was your first pet's name? What was this? All of these silly little questions that get thousands of comments because people people interact with that stuff. Well, you're giving away
Your story. Am I?
I think we lost Bill.
I think so. I think
He's frozen.
Yeah, he is. And we chatted about that before we came online. There was something that. Oh no, you're okay now, Bill. I can see you moving.
Am I okay? I'm not frozen now?
Yeah, you were frozen.
I'm just climatizing for my trip back to Canada, that's all. No, I was just mentioning the point that, my wife loves these things on Facebook that her friends share.
Yes.
And she, because it's shared by a friend who shared it from a friend who shared it from a friend, and so on, people are slowly giving out the standard answers to the standard security questions. What's your oldest sibling's name? Where were you born? All of this stuff, and they just do it innocently. And, I think this data protection has to start with us, because I don't think we can trust anybody. The big companies are there to make a buck, and I understand about the remarketing and that type of thing. Facebook, Google, they're free. They have to make money somehow to stay on the air. And I don't have a problem with, if I'm looking for a green screen or I'm looking for a new computer, that I see ads. But what I would be offended by is that my name, my email address, and other different things that maybe aren't that personal, other people could go and find them. But I don't like the idea that people can sell or send that on, and now I'm getting targeted with stuff that I have no interest in. So I don't know. I think it starts with us and the data we share.
I think you're right, because I'm noticing a couple of things that have happened to me in the last week or two. One is I got a personalized email from somebody, I have no idea who they are, asking could I have an appointment with you on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Would you please give us over the phone, would you please provide the telephone number where we can call you, because we think we've got a service that you will want. So somebody found my email address somewhere. So there's one thing. The other thing is, suddenly I'm on my smartphone. I'm beginning to get calls that, and for a long time, if my phone doesn't recognize that phone number, I don't answer it. and there's a voicemail. So if it's somebody that really wants to speak to me, they will leave a voicemail. So recently, there's a shift that I've noticed, and these calls are coming in from a local phone number, 250 area code, etc. So a couple of times I went in, I called them back because they didn't leave a message, and I thought, well, it's a local call. And when I call that local number, I get this number is no longer in service. So somebody is messing around with the phone numbers and the phone systems as well. So
Okay, can I jump in there for a sec?
Sure.
I've had experience with this myself. Whenever I go to Connecticut, I get a SIM card for my phone. As soon as I put that SIM card in, I start getting robocalls.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as T-Mobile indicates that I've made a purchase and that cell phone number comes up as a purchase for 30 days, it must automatically be sold, and I start getting those calls. The other thing I wanted to say to you is I have a Skype number that has a Connecticut, it's a Connecticut phone number.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I have that number roll over to my number here in Ireland, and it's basically in case of an emergency. So if anything happens back home and I need to be contacted right away, I can be. But that's how you can hide a number. So what I do is because I also get calls like that, I Google the phone number. And if it says it's a nuisance call, I will never answer it. But I don't answer phone numbers that I don't recognize, whether it's a local call or not.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were you, I would Google those numbers in the future before you go to all the trouble of calling them back.
Well, I got I did call one back, and it was a local call, and the person answered, and because I think it was 4 phone calls. I may have mentioned this before to everyone. And so his response was, "I'm sorry, I didn't phone you. I just got off an airplane." And his phone number is being used. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
yeah.
Well, and I would say to protect yourself, you're best not even phoning them back.
I would never
once you
phone
phone them back, your number's on their call display. You've
Yeah.
already answered the question that they're looking for. What was your phone number?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and of course, text messaging, the same thing is happening. Of course, that's through the phone system. I got one just the other day that said your bank has suspended your account. Please go to your website and please go to the bank website and do something. And I went, nah. So, I mean, we have to be extremely wary. Yeah. So there's Vivek. Good morning, Vivek. You look very blue this morning.
Namaste. I had to come rushing, and it's a complete mess. I hope I haven't destroyed.
Well, we're talking about GDPR, and so and recognizing that the EU and whether the UK is going to be subject to that or not was a question we had. So, do you have any?
I think UK is part of that, at least until UK formally gets out of the EU. So,
Yeah.
it's still there.
I thought it was interesting that you said you had to be Russian, considering we're talking about hacking today.
Oh, we got a mirror behind you. Wow.
Yeah, it's a ramshackle setup.
You're in a new location, I know.
Yeah.
Right on.
I actually was working till 5. It's 5:40 now.
Oh wow! So that's what the rushing was.
Yeah.
Bill, it wasn't Russian, it was rushing.
Rushing, yes, not Russian.
Potato, potato. If you don't mind, I'd like to share a comment from Miss Eileen, seeing as how she's out there. And
Please do.
commenting. We thank her for that. And wrong button. I'm not sure if you can see that.
I do.
She says, I know there's been a lot of attention on Facebook and Google, but the site I'm most concerned about having my email and other information on is LinkedIn.
Oh.
And so.
Why would that be? I wonder.
Yeah, I wonder that too. Although one thing I have noticed that LinkedIn is not like it used to be at all. It has changed incredibly.
Yeah, it's now owned by Microsoft, so.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, that would explain part of it.
Yeah, it brings the Microsoft attitude now. So, yeah.
Yes, well.
So, yeah, I wonder whether what she says has anything to do with being part of Microsoft. Because Microsoft is a company which quite easily gives away your personal information to any government agency.
Now, why would you say that? And what's the example that would?
Example, I can't think of an example at the top of my head, but previously it has been reported that Microsoft gave the information readily, whereas Google said, no, we can't give you the users' information, privacy, etc., and so on. But one thing about Microsoft is most of their clients are corporate, so they kind of assume that it's the employer's responsibility to take care of the personal and professional and all that, and so they assume that most of the stuff that they have access to is professional rather than personal. So whereas LinkedIn is somewhere in between.
In between, yes, it is. Well, so I maybe Miss Eileen will add a comment there that would sort of explain why she says that.
Actually, I'm just in the middle of processing it now.
Right. Okay.
I will share her information as soon as I can get it to the screen.
Okay. Right on. Thank you, Bill. Oh dear, and I mean, giving information about yourself. What ran through my mind is we're on the topic of LinkedIn. I remember at one time I've been on LinkedIn for years. I remember putting my maiden name in there because I knew that there were a lot of old university friends that would be looking for me and wouldn't know what my married name is. There was a big at that time, it was a big topic of conversation around, being found. And if you're in business and doing things, you want to be found. And so I remember putting my maiden name in LinkedIn in brackets. So there's another other little piece of information that platforms can do. So here is.
Yeah, Miss Eileen says LinkedIn lets people download your emails, and I get tons of spam at work that is coming from LinkedIn.
Wow. Okay.
That is definitely her experience.
Well, I seem to be, and I get quite a few LinkedIn things, But the other thing I'm noticing is I get a lot just recently, because I've been in and sort of looked around Twitter. I'm suddenly getting a whole lot more Twitter things in my inbox. So, yeah. And I know that has to do with how your settings, how you want to receive or it's supposed to be about how you want to receive your notifications from all these platforms.
But as a they what is it called? They have a paid membership,
Yes, they do.
and paid membership gives access to a lot more information than the free one.
Mm-hmm.
And in mail is one of the aspects which you get when you have the premium
Uh-huh.
paid subscription.
Mm-hmm.
And I think through that you get a lot of
Uh-huh.
you are it's strictly speaking, it is a two-way. You are able to spam a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
all your connections, and not just your connections, connections, and so on and so forth. But it also means you have access to their emails and
Uh-huh.
things like that,
Mm.
even though they are not directly connected to you.
What is
You
it in
still get,
LinkedIn? It's 3 degrees, isn't it? Though you have those that are directly connected to you, and then a second degree out there, or
yeah,
three,
yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. Yeah. Well, so I mean, we seem to be on this topic of sharing of information and what we do about it. So that's what this GDPR is all about: is trying to make sure that people's information doesn't get shared. So one of the sites that I looked at, and by the way, I have two or three sites, and before we're finished, I will, or when we're finished, I will put those sites that give a lot more detail around what to expect in this GDPR. But one of the sites that I looked at suggested that I was thinking about our website where we have an opt-in of some sort. It was recommended by one of the sites that you put an additional comment with a box for a person to click that says, by using this form, you agree with the storage and handling of your data by this website. So I'm kind of curious to know how all of you react to that. Would you want to put something like that? I mean, up till now, what we have done in some cases with our opt-in things on our websites is maybe kind of assured people that we respected their privacy or whatever. But it seems to me that this is going a bit further, and I just kind of wonder how all of you would react to, or how would you want to do that on your opt-in forms on your website. Any comments? Jay, what about you? How do you react to that?
Sorry, I missed what you were saying. I'm putting out fires as I'm listening here, so I apologize.
Oh,
So
well, Alana, what about you? Did you how do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, I think the double opt-in solves that problem. And secondly, if you have a button like that, it would give a person pause to maybe go back and read the terms and conditions of the privacy or whatever, and you would probably want to have a link to that if they're concerned, they can read about the handling of their information by clicking a particular link. So I mean, I could see where it would be helpful, but I can also see where it might make someone pause, and think, okay, well, how is my information being handled, and do I really want to subscribe here? So
Okay, now I get the gist of it. I can jump in if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I do a lot of email marketing, right?
Okay.
Either for myself or for on the behalf of clients. And I've been doing it for a number of years. And what I've learned about, and you doing this for a while, you really do learn about human behavior, on how people react on the things that you do and the things that you add within your email forms and opt-in options and stuff. And the more I find that the more things that you put within your form when you're saying, oh, I'm not going to spam you, click here to make sure that you're going to do this, they don't convert, right? So it's because you're implementing fear mongering, not intentionally, right? But so there has to be this line in the sand that has to be drawn. Whereas if you know as your as an ethical marketer, whether it be through web, social, email, and you know you're not going to be selling their list and all that kind of stuff, you could simply put in your opt-in form saying, your privacy is important to us, and then have a link to the privacy policy, and that's it. Otherwise, you don't have to put that in there as long as your privacy and all that kind of stuff is somewhere linkable in your site. Typically, I put it in the footer, and I have yet to experience any kind of issue when it comes to can spam policy and all that kind of stuff. So, I think we need to really, like I said, draw that line in the sand in terms of, I'm compliant, right? So I'm doing everything right. So I can't be saying it's like having a conversation with someone. And before you actually start the conversation, just say, oh, by the way, our conversation is protected by my privacy policy. Here, I'll give this to you. If you can please just have a read this before we start our conversation, and then we'll be good to go. Obviously we're never going to do that, right? Or like in social media, the moment you read a tweet or anything, and before you reply, this thing comes up. Well, before you reply, you need to abide and read by all of this kind of stuff, right? I mean, there has to be this limit, and it's just getting too much. I really do think that it's getting just a little over the top. So.
Well, Jay,
I agree with you, Jay. I think in that case, you're probably better under promising and over delivering. Don't bring all of these things to, it's like the guy who's having a conversation. He's trying to sell you something, and every second sentence he starts with, well, to be honest with you, that's a red flag to me. Like, I mean, you're being honest with me this time, but what about all the other times you spoke to me?
Yeah. And if someone, absolutely. Yeah. And if someone is so scared about opting in, then I don't want them in the first place, because they're got their gloves up and they've got the guard up so much that it's going to be such a long road to conversion that it's not worth it.
Well, one of these probably where I saw this, there was a distinction made, and this refers back to something Alana said. There was a distinction made. So if you ask them to subscribe, then they go to one of your auto mailer systems, then the double opt-in happens, and you're covered there. But then there was this other aspect where click here to receive, I don't know, my ebook on this or my report on that or whatever. So there are other things often on your website that you have people sort of sign up for. And I think that's maybe what by using this form you agree, et cetera, But I agree, Jay. I mean, if the more hoops you make somebody jump through, the less likely they are to do anything. They just go away if it's not simple. Go ahead, Vivek.
I was going to say I agree with what Jay said, and one way to make people not read your terms and conditions is to make it elaborately long. You make it pages and pages, nobody's going to read it.
Read it. Yeah. That's true. That's what we were saying, that these terms and conditions are just long.
So
But
it all depends on what my point is. It all depends on what you want to do. What's your why are you doing what you're trying to do? So are you trying to protect yourself legally by trying to handle all possible situations by making it a legal tome? Or are you trying to be helpful to the other person, in which case you are taking a risk?
so that, I guess that's a good point you're making. I mean, really, if we're here to provide information or to help people, be helpful, etc., then we are not going to spam people. We're not going to do that to them. But unfortunately, there seem to be, oh well, I guess ethics have a very wide interpretation. Wow.
Well, and that's what it comes down to, I think, is personal ethics. And in order then where I come from is a different place than where other people come from, because I don't give a damn about the money. Nothing I do is to generate income for me. Not that I couldn't use more money, but the things I do are to help other people. So when I did my Google site, the only way I could allow people to subscribe was to create a form. So I created a form and I put in there, when you subscribe to this form, you will automatically be notified anytime something is put up on my site. However, I wish to respect your privacy, and I gave them the option below to check that they didn't want to be notified every time, maybe just once a week, or maybe a monthly newsletter. And I even gave them the option, never contact me. I will check back at my convenience. Because for me, there's no fun there. The people, and I found with my website and people being older, I had very little engagement in the comments. I mean, I had quite a few comments, but the people who actually came to Belize and made contact with me and asked for my help, I never knew they were there, other than the fact that they subscribed sometimes 2 years previously. I had never heard a word from those people, but when it came time, they sent me a private email and we had a video chat, and we decided if I would spend a day with them or just have dinner with them, whatever they wanted. And so I think it depends partly on what you're doing, but in my case, I never wanted to offend anyone. So I always gave people multiple options to opt out or get what they wanted.
Yeah, but I'm going to say but, and I know that's a no in discussion.
No, not at
But
all.
some of us are looking for and at ways to create an online business, and conversions are important, and
Right.
so we need to respect that as well. And as you say, it depends on what it is that we're trying to do.
Yep.
But even if
But
we're
that being said, the end result of what I did was that people were, even though I didn't advertise, I mean, I had no intentions of doing tours with people. That was never my end goal. But people started contacting me at a rate, after 2.5 years, it was at a rate that I had to seriously consider opening a business to do that. I mean, I would be foolish to turn away these 15 or 20 people a year that would more than pay my living expenses here. But that wasn't the end goal. And I understand the difference between people that are throwing up a website, they want to get away from their day-to-day job, they need to start making money now. Their approach is probably going to be different than the guy who's just out there trying to help people. But the bottom line is, if you help people and you build that relationship, people are going to be more likely to opt in. And when the time comes and they need your product or service, they will contact you without being constantly pounded on the head. And I hate the people that say, well, I just send my emails to everybody, and if they opt out, well, then they were never going to buy from me anyway. Well, to me, that's
Yeah.
from my ethics point of view, that's just wrong. I mean,
Well, what we need to do is we need to target and be clear about who our clients are and what our clients' needs and interests are. That's it's part of the. We're not throwing things against the wall just to see what sticks, for sure. Yeah. So we lost Fred. I see off the end. He often has a late or an early meeting. So.
well, his cat was sitting on his laptop.
Oh,
so
that's right.
May have had a catastrophe.
He couldn't get the cat to stop crawling up onto the keyboard. So I see we are at the top of the hour. Before we close, anybody have any parting comments that they would like to make about all these compliance issues that we all have? Because I felt it was important that we speak about this GDPR, because a lot of us are doing business internationally, and so we need to be aware of what is out there and what we need to do in order to be compliant, so that we can do business internationally. So that's my parting comment. Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, I mean, if you're utilizing Aweber, MailChimp, any of these autoresponder services, you're pretty much covered, because they're being compliant, or they're making the effort to become compliant, and you're just using them as a service provider. So the onus is really
on them
to be compliant, right? So, as long as you're using a paid service like that, you're golden. You're totally fine.
Okay.
And I would just say, do your due diligence, like everything, whether it's running your website, the information you share. You can never trust somebody else to have your best interests. So do your own due diligence before you start partnering with people, and make sure they're reputable, and make sure that you're reputable. And I think everything will be fine.
Right. I think that's a good parting comment. So that means that this is the end, and I will signal the end and ask everybody. I guess everybody is on mute. So we're going to close now with a reminder that it's important to do what you love with passion, and we'll see you next week.